President, please be seated. The court is back in session, and the floor is given to the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor to resume his questioning. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mansles, earlier when you were answering questions from the civil party lawyer, you indicated that one of the reasons for the rebellion was the fact that the Cham people were not allowed to practice Islam. Can you tell us if there were any other reasons for the decision to rebel?
President, please hold on. Civil party, you have the floor now. Kung Samon. Thank you, Mr. President. I have an observation on the question put by the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, particularly in relation to the rebellion in general. The question is directed to the rebellion. And as far as the chamber is concerned, this hearing is to hear the victim impacts testimony. It's not about the specific fact that is the rebellion. So that is my observation, Mr. President. President, the question is allowed since the civil party is aware of, if the civil party is aware of the facts and also the impacts resulted from the suffering, and if the civil party is aware, then that is fine. And the facts is before the chamber.
And perhaps I'll just rephrase my question in a more simple way. Can you tell us all of the reasons that the villagers in Svai Kleng decided to rebel?
Civil party, thank you. Before we decided to rebellion, it was because many Khmer Rouge killed Cham people. The reason that we rebelled is because Khmer Rouge had killed many of Cham people.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to turn now to the period after the rebellion and the day in which the population of Svai Kleng was evacuated or forced out of the village. Can you tell us, if you know, who it was that organized that evacuation?
No.
Answer. Soldiers armed with weapons were seen during the rebellion, and we were evacuated from our village to be in some location meant, as I said, were placed in the tobacco kiln, and for women and children they were placed in a pagoda.
I just want to ask you quickly about one sentence in your civil party application, and this is actually the last sentence of the application, so that should make it easy to find. You say, quote, "I only knew that the commune chief named Long and his subordinate Peng Heng, they were both killed by their Khmer Rouge friends, were the persons who took the evacuees away," unquote. So can you tell me, do you know whether they were involved in the evacuation of Svai Kling? And if so, can you tell us who those two people were?
Answer. Peng Hein and Long were in the village, were working in the village, and I heard a different, name from you. Only Peng Hein and Long were working in the village. Central soldiers from the center went to my village and evacuated us.
And can you tell us that those were the two names that you just mentioned were the ones I was trying to say. Were those two people involved in the evacuation of Svai Kling?
Now,
Answer. The two individuals were in charge of my village. One was the chief, and another the one was the deputy chief. Long was the chief of the village, and Peng Hein was the deputy.
Okay, thank you. The last thing I want to ask you about is what you heard about the killing of your mother and your 3 siblings. I know that this is something you heard from villagers. You've told us that. But can you tell us in as much detail as you remember what they told you about where your mother and siblings were taken and how they were killed?
nhằm
Answer. I can recall that. I went to talk to the villagers whom did not talk much to me. I was talking to them for perhaps 2 minutes, and I was told that my mother and siblings were sent to Ganzhou to be killed.
And did the villagers say how they knew that your family members had been sent away to be killed?
Answer. Those villagers spoke not much. They said my mother and siblings were sent to Steng Trong district to be killed, and the killing happened at Beng Kanchoj. That was what I received the information.
Did they tell you anything about the method of killing, whether they had been shot or beaten to death or drowned or anything like that?
sớm con
Civil party. Thank you. I do not know the method of killing. I was told that my mother and my 3 siblings were sent away from the village to Steng Trong district, and the specific location of the killing was Beng Kanchou. The villagers did not say that my mother and my 3 siblings were killed by gunshots or whatever means.
Okay. Thank you for answering my questions, Mr. Civil Party. I know these are difficult things to discuss, so I appreciate your patience. And Mr. President, no further questions.
President, thank you. Now the floor is given to the different teams. First, starting from the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia to put questions to this civil party, if any. Lawyer, my name is Sun Arun, represent the Defense Counsel for Nguyen Chia. Good afternoon, Mr. Civil Party. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. I do not have many questions, perhaps 2 or 3 to ask you, Mr. Civil Party. There was a rebellion of Cham people in 1975, in late 1975, in Swai village, said lawyer. Do you know why Cham people rebelled against the Khmer Rouge? As you know, Khmer Rouge had just won the victory at that time, and Cham people had no weapons at that time. So why Cham people decided to rebel against the had won a victory by the Khmer Rouge? Answer. It was because Cham people had been killed. Number 2, we were not allowed to practice our religion, the religion of our Allah. For this reason, we rebelled against the Khmer Rouge for the sake of rebellion and Cham people as a whole. Lawyer, thank you. In the period of rebellion, how many of you participated in it? Answer. I know very well about the rebellion since I was residing in the village. All of us from that village rebelled against the Khmer Rouge. Only young children and women who had just delivered the baby with a young infants did not join the rebellion. Question. Were you actively engaged in that rebellion? Is that true? Answer. It is not like what you said. I was assisting others. I was behind the others who were in the front line. President interrupts. Please, court officer, move the microphone close to the civil party, particularly to the other side of the civil party, since it is not a good sound. Lawyer, Mr. Civil Party, could you repeat your answer since I could not get it well? Civil Party, could you repeat your question instead, lawyer? I do not really get it. Lawyer, let me reformulate the question. During the rebellion, were you actively involved in the rebellion of 1 day and a half, said lawyer. Answer. I have told you already, lawyer. I did participate in the rebellion, but my role was to reinforce others who were in the front line. Lawyer, thank you. Could you briefly tell the chamber about the incident at the time? So, how large was the rebellion between the Khmer Rouge and Cham people?
សូមអរគុណខ្ញុំអាចជម្រាបប្រាប់លោកបាន
Civil party. Yes, Mr. Lawyer, I can tell you briefly. It was like a battlefield where the two sides of soldiers were engaged in the war. Cham people had only machetes or knives to rebel for the sake of Allah. They did not dare to lose their lives, although many Cham people had died. Similarly, Khmer Rouge also died, but they died in a small number. Lawyer. During the attack between the Khmer Rouge and Cham people, and as you said, Khmer Rouge were armed with weapons, and Cham people had only machetes or knives in hands or clubs. Did all of you foresee that you would lose the battle because of light weapons possessed by Cham people? Did you personally foresee that?
ខ្លួនខ្ញុំ
Answer. I am of the opinion that although I did not rebel, I would die anyway, since there was pressure from time to time and more extensively on Cham people. Cham people had been arrested to be killed. Because of this, Cham people stood up and rebelled. They did not dare to die. They had to rebel for the sake of our holy God or Allah.
ពេលដែលមានការបះបោរហ្នឹង
Question. Based on the document, the rebellion happened in late 1975. You stated that Khmer Rouge had mistreated people before 1975. Because of that mistreatment before the victory of Khmer Rouge, Cham people decided that only rebellion could prevent such mistreatment. Was that your thinking, and was that Cham people's thinking at the time? Civil party. I had a different understanding from what you have now. Khmer Rouge would kill us, and we had to do everything for our religion, and in particular the holy Allah. We we had to rebel since 4 or 5 times of Jam people had been arrested at night time or once at a time. So we had to rebel. Question. Khmer Rouge people had arrested 3, 4 or 5 Jam people at a time at night time. Do you know the reason why? The reason Khmer Rouge mistreated Jam people and arrested Jam people? Answer. It is my little understanding that Jam people it is my little understanding that they wanted to eradicate Jam ethnicity in Cambodia. Lawyer, you stated that they want to eradicate or exterminate Jam people in Cambodia. Is that true, what I summarized? Answer, that is correct. Question. You stated that Khmer Rouge wanted to exterminate Jam people, and in the past regime, in Sihanouk regime and in Lon Nol regime, Jam people were not exterminated. So, do you know why?
បាទអរគុណខ្ញុំអាចឆ្លើយ
Answer. I can give my response. In the previous regimes, no discrimination, no racial discrimination. Schools were opened for everyone, including Jam people. Jam language were allowed to be taught at school. English also was allowed to learn. In contrast, Khmer Rouge did not allow us to learn our own language. Young children were forced to collect cow dung. Only some people could get education to a very minimal extent. Lawyer, thank you. To my knowledge and based on Khmer Rouge documents, as you said, schools were everywhere in the country in the previous regimes. During the Khmer Rouge, based on the documents and evidence before the chamber, schools did not exist. Schools had not yet established at the time, since the new government had just come into control. I believe it was a misunderstanding of Cham people that schools were closed down. In fact, they were prepared. Schools were to be in existence. President, I think it is far beyond what you should ask. So I do not really understand whether you are now explaining the civil party, that civil party is misunderstanding the concept. So please focus on facts if you want to ask about specific facts, and if you want to know about the sufferings experienced by the civil party, please go specifically to that suffering. So you cannot make a comparison of rebellion in the previous and later regimes. Rebellion may have happened everywhere in the world after the people who joined in the rebellion think that it is appropriate time to rebel. and the rebellion want to keep one good regime sometimes and to leave the legacy for the future. So please, lawyer, reformulate your question and be specific on the questions. Lawyer, from what I heard, the civil party said the Cham people was angry with the Khmer Rouge. President interrupts. You stated that you asked was you said that the civil party misunderstood the establishment of the schools. So you cannot say that the civil party misunderstood any facts. So please go on with your question. Your justification is not really good. It's not appropriate. Lawyer, thank you, Mr. President. I am concluded with my questioning. President, now the floor is given to the defense counsel for Mr. Kyu Sampon, Kung Samon. Thank you, Mr. President. We have no questions. President. Now, Mr. Manslas, do you wish to make a victim's impact statement, or do you have any questions to put to the accused through me, the President? If so, please proceed. Manslas. Thank you, Mr. President. I may have 2 or 3 questions. The questions are as follow. Question number 1. Why did Khmer Rouge hate Cham people? Number 2. Why Khmer Rouge wanted to exterminate Cham people? The third question. In relation to religion of Allah, why did Khmer Rouge consider that Allah religion a reactionary or feudalist religion? President, thank you. Mr. Mansley, in accordance with Internal Rule 21(1)(d) of the ECCC, at all stages of the proceedings, the chamber must inform the accused of the rights to remain silent in relation to the question put to them. On 8 January 2015, the accused made an express right to remain silent. After ascertaining the position of both accused, the chamber notes that the 2 accused maintain their expressed position unless and until such time the chamber is expressly informed otherwise by the co-accused or their counsels. It is therefore incumbent upon them to inform the chamber in a timely and efficient manner should the accused resolve to waive the right to remain silent and be willing to respond to questions by the bench or relevant parties at any stage of the proceedings. As of today, the chamber is not informed that the accused have changed their expressed position and thus agreed to provide their responses to questions. And the chamber want to indicates that there is no provision allowing the chamber to force the accused to give their responses. The chamber is grateful to you, Mr. Mansles, for your statements of victim impact and also your suffering, which you stated that you endured during the Democratic Cambodia. It is now the conclusion of your suffering statement hearing. You may now be accused. You may return to your residence or to anywhere you wish to go. I wish you all the best. Good luck, good health, and prosperity. Thank you, Mr. Bun Lum Hua, TBO staff. The hearing of victim impact statement is now concluded. And the chamber is now continuing to hear 2 TCCP 1015. So you are asked to remain seated during the hearing of a victim impact statement. Court officer, please help work with the vessel to send the man back to his residence or to anywhere he wishes to go. And please invite 2 TCCP 1015 into the courtroom. You can now leave the courtroom, Mr. Mansles. President, the chamber forgets telling parties a while ago in fact 2 TCCP is scheduled to be here first, but because of health reason, the chamber decided to change, to alter the schedule and decides to hear 2 TCCP 1015 instead. Please be informed. President, is there any issue or problem with you, lead co-lawyers for civil party, because of the change of the schedule to hear this civil party first? But good afternoon once again, Mr. President. There is no particular issue, although there is a change in schedule. I asked this civil party, and I was told that she told me that she is ready, and Mary Guido is in charge of putting question to this civil party. Thank you, Mr. President. President, thank you. Madam Civil Party, what is your name?
Answer, my name is Sieng Chanthai. President, thank you, Madam Sieng Chanthai. Could you tell us when were you born? Answer, I was born on the 15th of April 1962. Question, where is your current address? Answer, in Chongprek village, Svai Rieng commune, Svai Rieng province. Question, what is your current occupation? Answer, I work in the Ministry of Agriculture. Question: What is the name of your husband and how many children do you have? Answer: I got divorced. I have one son. Question: President: Thank you, Madam Sieng Chan Thai. As a civil party in this chamber, you may make a victim's impact statement, if any, concerning the crimes which are alleged against the two accused, Nunchi and Khieu Sampon, and harmed suffered by you during the Democratic Cambodia regime between 17 April 1975 and 7 January 1979, resulting in your civil party application to claim collective and moral reparation for physical, material, or mental injuries as direct consequences of those crimes. And based on the request by the lead co-lawyer for civil party, the chamber gives the floor to the lead co-lawyer for civil parties to put questions to the civil party related to the harm and suffering that inflicted on her. So if you have any question, please proceed.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Madam Civil Party. I will be the person putting questions to you this afternoon. You have been summoned to testify in regard to sufferings you endured as a result of the treatment of Vietnamese. I'll put some specific questions to you on that subject and on the sufferings you endured during the period of Democratic Cambodia. In your civil party application, you stated as harm endured, and I'm referring to document D22/366. You stated that your father's suicide following the threats made against him by the Khmer Rouge was psychological harm you suffered during the period of Democratic Cambodia. I would therefore like you to explain to the chamber under what circumstances your father was brought to commit suicide and how such suicide affected you.
Answer: Let me tell the chamber about what happened to my families. My father is a Vietnamese. My ancestors were Vietnamese living in Cambodia in 1975. After the 17th April of 1975, the Khmer Rouge evacuated my family across Osmach Bridge to Chuk Saw village. That was the hometown of my parents. When we arrived at the hometown of my parents, we were considered as the 17th April people. And as the new people, we were looked down by the old people. They accused us of being feudalist, capitalist, and of being Vietnamese half-blooded. And we were forced to work hard day and night. And my husband, rather my father, as a result, were relocated to another location. when we travel along the road, and after we spend about around 10 or 20 days, which I could not remember, my brother, who was a soldier, were also evacuated from Phnom Penh, and he was sent to join the study session. When after he had been taken away to study, about 5 or 6 months later, he was released. And later on, in 1976, 1977, at around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, I saw 2 militiamen coming to arrest my brother. And they tied him up and walked him away. He shouted to me to tell my parents that he was arrested. I did not dare to tell about this arrest to my mother because my mother was sick. About half month later, someone stole chickens in my village. And they took and that person was taken to the district office, and when that person came back, that
he was mistreated, and everyone bit him like animals. I could recall of what happened to him as of now. Later in 1977, and I cannot tell the exact month, before the attack into the country by Vietnamese troops, villagers had been once again evacuated out of the village. On the way, we saw that people had tied up, and there among the group there was my elder brother, and my mother at the time ran to my elder brother so that she could give the rice to him. Seeing that, the Khmer Rouge kept beating my elder brother. My mother at the time was running, following the elder brother, and she was crying, shouting that I really wanted to give the right to you, my beloved son, but I cannot. My mother was crying so terribly since she felt a pity for my elder brother. My father at the time consoled my mother not to cry. Later on, the attack by the Vietnamese were not so strong, and Vietnamese troops withdrew. We were sent to Svai Kliang in a cooperative. At that time, we were sent into the first group, the special force group, and we worked in that group during the daytime and had to return back to our shelter or location at night time. My father was in charge of planting vegetables, so he was not allowed to return home or location where we slept every night. One day I was sent to harvest rice about 3 or 4 kilometers away from my house. My brother Ton was with me, but at that time during a meal time, I did not see him, and I wanted to ask others about his presence, but I was prevented from asking. When I returned home, I asked my father and mother, and in reply, my brother was taken away by militiamen. My elder brother was sent to carry belongings of the militiaman. Four people had been arrested. After hearing this, I could not speak anything but wept and hugged my parents, crying. After a few days, the 3 Vietnamese families in my village, 2 families among the 3 were taken away. That person was ethnically Vietnamese, and the person held the rank of lieutenant colonel. 2 daughters from that Vietnamese family were raped, and my father was so terrified since he knew that the 2 daughters were raped. At the time, after hearing that, I did not want to live anymore. I did not want those people to take me away, and I was afraid that I would be mistreated. I wanted to commit suicide. My siblings suggested and told me that not to commit suicide. My father also wanted to commit suicide at the time. He wanted to hang himself with the kroma or scarf. And my mother implored my father not to commit suicide. My father was so skinny at that time, and I asked him why. He said he could not eat. And at that time, it was said that my father looked really like a Vietnamese, since he had fair complexion. He was so terrified. At night time, one day at night time, my father told me that when he died, he wanted to be buried, and he said that after he died, perhaps all of us could still survive, since all of us had black eyes, not too big like the Vietnamese. I implored my father. I said that please do not go anywhere. Please do not leave us behind. He said that you, the youngest daughter in the family, who are the youngest daughters, were sent away to work. So when I was not here with you, you should take care of your younger daughters. 1 week after my daughter died, my father committed suicide. He hung himself under a tree. At that time, while he was committing suicide, I had been sent away to work in a field. In the morning, at around 8 a.m., my mother and everyone and all of us was hinted to look at the spring plant and tree. And there, at that time, my mother realized that it was her husband, and villagers said, told us to cut off the branch of the tree so that the body of him could fall down. But my mother implored others not to cut off the branch, but to take him off the branch very slowly. After they took off my father from the tree, from the after the krama was untied and the body of my father was taken and laid on the ground, the Khmer Rouge said, told everyone to drag the body along the road. But we implored, and everyone in the family, every villager knew that my father committed a suicide because he wanted all of us to survive. After my father had been taken away to be buried, you know, the coffin was made from the palm sugar leaves to cover him, and the legs, his legs were seamed. The body could not fully covered with that sugar palm leaves coffin. Not long, 2 days, 3 days, or perhaps 10 days later, I could not recall it well since I was young at the time, I was whispered by a villager. But first I want to backtrack a little bit. I want to tell the court about my elder sibling Chantha, who was working elsewhere before my father died. While I was walking on the way to work, I was walking on the embankment. My elder brother was walked on the way among the educated people. He called my name, Amir. He asked me whether I had tobacco. He wanted to have some tobacco. My mother knew that my father was working close to the place where we work, and she wrapped tobacco with her so that she could drop off, and my elder sibling or brother could pick it up. In fact, my elder brother thought that rice would be wrapped secretly and would be given to him to eat, but my mother did not dare to wrap the rice because she was afraid that she would be killed. Sometimes I do not feel well, said the civil party. After I met my father and after my mother had met my brother, we went back home. She drank water and she was choked with water, almost died at that time. She asked me for help, and after a while she was relieved. This is the truth. I am not telling lies to this court. It is the truth. It is the misery happening to my family. It is really the misery that I have experienced in my life. And later on, and when after my father had passed away, my mother detained herself in the house. She did not want to go anywhere but to stay in the house. She could only eat a very little meal or rice. She wanted to commit a suicide after my father had died. I implored her that please do not leave us behind. We lost father already. Please stay with us and bear the situation. My mother was crying every time. She was crying almost every day. Sometimes she cried, and she could, because she cried too much, there was no more tears out of her eyes while crying. And there was sometimes when she yawned, her jaw was locked. Are you relieved? Madam Civil Party said TBO staff.
Madam Civil Party.
President, please hold on, Civil Party, and observe microphone. After the body of my father had been buried. In fact, at that time I was not there to see. And after I returned from harvesting rice, I met my younger sibling. Her face looked very sad, and I talked to her, but she replied to nothing. She did not say anything to me. After I walked into the house, my mother told me to go and find rice to eat, and I was asked to go kitchen hall to fetch rice for my younger siblings to eat. When I reached kitchen hall, everyone was staring at me, and I was thinking at the time that it was the time for my family members. We perhaps would be taken away on that day, and I pat the back of my neck, and I thought that the bullet from the gunshot would hit the back of my neck. And a little while later on, I was told that my father was died and was buried. I could not describe the feeling. I was not able to cry. I was shocked. I was quiet and stiff. My mother kept weeping, and it was nighttime. A secret lighter, was handed to me to light the lamp so that the house was brightened. In fact, that cigarette lighter was used by my father on a daily basis. After handing that lighter to me, I realized that I had no father any longer. I had no father now. I was talking to myself that I was half-blooded Vietnamese, and I did not know when it was my time to be taken away. I was afraid and I was scared that I would be taken away to be killed. No one talked to me while I was working. I was carrying earth myself alone, and I carried the basket full of earth at the side of my waist, and no one talked to me. I asked them, my co-workers, and they did not say anything. But one time, my co-workers, my co-worker my co-worker talked to me and said, "Yeah," that was my name. My my parents and family members did not want me to talk to you, because they afraid that I would be taken away to be killed since you, was half-blooded Vietnamese. I was so scared at the time. Although I was half-blooded Vietnamese, my parents were ethnically Vietnamese. I could not speak Vietnamese language. During the time that I lived in Pol Pot regime, I lived in a fearful situation every day. I was afraid that I would be taken away and killed. While I was describing this story to you, this experience to you, I feel it is fresh before me now, in front of me now. I could imagine what is happening. I missed my elder brothers so much who were tortured. I missed my father. Today, even when a theft or an offender is arrested and beaten in front of me, I do not dare to look at that incident, since it reminds me of what is happening to my brothers and my father. This feeling is haunting me. President. Thank you, Madam Sieng Chan Thi, said the President. The hearing of victim impact statement and sufferings of you as a civil party has not come to an end yet. You are therefore invited to be here once again to state your statements and statement of suffering tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you, Bun Lam Hua People staff, for being here and assist the civil party in the testimony of statement of sufferings. Sieng Chan Thai. You may now be accused. Court officer, please work with a vessel to send Madame Sieng Chan Thai back to the place where she is staying right now, and please invite her back into the courtroom tomorrow at 9 a.m. It is now an appropriate time for the adjournment. The chamber will resume its hearing tomorrow, 1st March 2016 at 9 a.m. Tomorrow, the chamber will continue hearing the suffering of Sieng Chan Thai, and then 2 TC CP 1014. Please be informed and please be on time. Security personnel are instructed to bring the two accused back to the ECCC detention facility, and please have them return into the courtroom tomorrow before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.